Hello everyone, welcome to Global Government News. Today is Saturday, April 25th, 2020, and I'm Darko. Around this whole COVID-19 crisis that's been going on for the last about 5 weeks for us here in the US, we keep hearing about how we're at war with a virus. We have Trump calling himself a wartime president, invoking the Defense Production Act, where we'll take control over private companies and force them to produce. In France, tightening lockdowns. And much like 9/11, where we were told we faced a common enemy, which was global terror, now it's a global pandemic. The world faces a common enemy. This is from Global ID News. Right here we have fighting against the common enemy of COVID-19. The practice of building a community with a shared future for mankind. So this is all the same stuff that we normally hear about building a global community, a global solution to global problems, a common enemy. UN calls for a global ceasefire to combat the common enemy. And what's the common enemy? Misinformation. That's right, what I'm doing right here. UN chief says misinformation about the COVID-19 is now the new enemy. The UN Secretary says the world is not only fighting the common enemy of the coronavirus, but our enemy is also the growing surge of misinformation about COVID-19. So there's a lot of fact-fixing articles that are going out right now, which are the actual misinformation, to keep the story contained and the narrative going. That this virus wasn't made in a lab. It is as bad as they say it is, and that the solution of vaccines and this lockdown of society and the economy and destroying the economy is justified. So much like 9/11, where Americans really lost a lot of their rights with the Patriot Act and that different laws that were signed in the name of terrorism. The same thing is going to happen here with this outbreak or pandemic or COVID-19 crisis, where things are going to be done that could never ever be done before, that would be considered unconstitutional. And people wouldn't normally go along with torturing people and like with 9/11 and stuff, and just declaring war on people in the name of terror without question. They'll be able to do the same thing here. And of course, with both of those themes is the people are going to make a lot of money. There's big corporations that are going to make a lot of money, whether it's pharmaceutical companies or defense contractors. But small businesses, small farmers, the average Joe is going to be definitely impacted by this. Kentucky man with coronavirus who refused to self-quarantine was being guarded by police officers after he failed to follow quarantine orders. This was March 16th. This was at the beginning of all of this lockdown that took place in the U.S. A Colombian woman who broke her coronavirus quarantine was publicly shamed on national television, and she now faces up to 8 years in prison. And all of these people in the comment boards all supported this. In fact, they actually said that they should have went further than what they did and punished them even more in prison time and stuff. A woman in London defied the UK lockdown. She's basically by sitting on a park bench for nearly an hour and got arrested. And this has kind of become like a famous story everybody knows now, so I just thought I'd include it in here. The UK government's website says the citizens can take one form of exercise a day, and it gives examples of physical exercise, for example, run, walk, or cycle, but the mainstream media is basically saying things like you shouldn't go outside, and sunshine and sunlight doesn't really help. Anything that would have to do with alternative medicine, just basically stay indoors, disinfect everything so your immune system doesn't have to work or get stronger, and take your vaccine, or I guess wait for your vaccine. Dad arrested in front of 6-year-old for social distancing violation. That was April 8th. In Maine, this was March 29th, Maine sheriff investigating a claim that armed men cut down a tree to force a neighbor's quarantine, and that did actually happen. So this was the mob mentality that takes place, and I can tell in the comment boards that people are totally on board with this because they bought into this lie about it. being as big a threat as it is, that they would go down here and just force a guy, cut down trees, and keep him locked into his house. A Louisiana church defies the COVID order and holds Sunday services. I was shocked when I heard this, that they were actually telling churches that they couldn't hold services. Like, it's considered non-essential to go to church. I mean, I'm not really all that religious. I don't go to church myself every week, but I mean, for people that would want to, I'd imagine they should be able to, legally. Illinois County must hand over coronavirus patients' names to the police. So they said that they had originally refused to hand over the names. The health department, they usually cite privacy concerns, but now because of COVID-19, they're able to bypass that in the name of what? Safety and security, right? Like national security. You have de Blasio urging New Yorkers to snitch on social distance rule breakers. If you see someone failing to practice social distancing, rat them out, said the mayor. He said, snap a photo of an offending person or crowd and set the location on the image and text it to this number. Governments could use social media to enforce coronavirus lockdowns. In Italy, they can identify 1,300 rule breakers by analyzing Instagram. And this isn't just, the United States or Europe. I guess Russia's part of Europe, but still, Russia deployed 100,000 facial recognition cameras to enforce quarantine. I've also seen something, an article that said that they're going to start using the tracing app that's being used by Apple and Google and stuff. This thing, tracking tools for contact tracing, is being used in Russia. And then you have China also using mobile phone data to track and isolate suspected patients. This is all happening at the same time, which should send red flags up, alarm bells for people that this is a global plan, a global agenda that's all being laid out at the same time. And this I've seen on the toll roads a lot lately, where they're saying not to use cash anymore. They were shutting down all the little exits where you can pay cash on the toll roads and forcing people to this open tolling system, which they've been kind of forcing people over the last year, I've noticed, to get on. It's all done electronically through surveillance, and you can't pay cash anymore. And this is a great opportunity to push people onto that system. Why it's no longer acceptable to pay with cash. Aussies, this is in Australia, urged to ditch disease-spreading notes. Experts admit coronavirus could kill physical money for good. So see, there you go. Moving to an electronic currency. Look at this. China rolls out a test of digital currency in 4 cities. Western businesses are testing. This is today, April 25th. 2020. So there you go. And I saw those and all those little lit up billboard signs that the government has over these toll roads that say, stay safe and stop the coronavirus spread and don't use cash. And a long time GGN viewer last night left a comment about why they would want to shut down any kind of community of people going out in public and talking. Is basically they want all communications to go to electronics, which I never thought about because it would make sense, because that way you can completely track everything. People out at a park talking or at a bar or something like that, it's a lot harder to track what everybody's saying. And they can kind of do this right now with those phones, which is why the smartphone is such a huge tool that they implemented in society over the last 20 years or so, especially the last 10 years, where it's been proven that those phones can be used to listen in on people's conversations, especially with ads that are catered to them, with algorithms based off your conversation and words. All of a sudden you'll get an ad based, off a conversation that you had with somebody out in public. So there's already that happening, but if everything is done through a computer and through a phone, it could be more heavily monitored. So I don't know why people would still want to be using Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and all these things. They were basically set up to track people. That's what they were supposed to do. Facebook gets your whole digital profile footprint in one safe spot, and it's done voluntarily, and it's profitable. And those profits go towards other applications that will help surveil the public, much like what Google is. Next up, drone patrol to enforce social distancing is scrapped over privacy concerns. This was just today. In the video I posted yesterday, I talked about this. But it says here that it's been grounded before its first flight. That's awesome. The police department, they said, in our good faith effort to get ahead of the virus and potential need to manage and safely monitor crowds and social distancing in the environment, our announcement to use these drones to surveil people was perhaps misinterpreted and not well received, you think, and posed many additional questions. I'm sure it did. Well, I saw the video. They were already doing it, so it's basically people said, what the hell is going on here, and then they stopped it. So unofficially already doing it, and then they were officially gonna be doing it. I guess they were just kind of beta testing the public and found that, hey, they don't really want this. So I guess if people don't say anything, like if people are out right now protesting against the lockdown, I thought about that, then it will just continue without question. Illinois has been hardcore, and that's one of the states I was talking about with the toll roads. They completely shut everything down, stay-at-home order. Cover up or else, part of Illinois and other states are requiring masks in public. Italian beach towns are planning plexiglass cages to enforce safe sunbathing this summer, and this isn't a joke, I'm not making this up. Plastic boxes. Social distancing boxes on the beach could hopefully restart the tourism industry. So just like the boxes, little cubicles at your home, you go from that box, that prison cell, to the other prison cell on the beach, and yeah. And talking about misinformation and fixing the facts by the mainstream media. You have YouTube CEO saying, we'll delete anything that contradicts the World Health Organization, the WHO, on COVID-19. So we just talked about the UN having a common enemy, which is misinformation. Anything that would go against the WHO's recommendation would be a violation of our policy. So there you go. Dude, this is crazy. Look what she says. She says, of course, anything that is medically unsubstantiated will be removed. It's problematic. So people saying things like take vitamin C or turmeric, like those things will cure you. No one's saying it's going to cure you. It's just saying it's going to help your immune system. Just like vaccines, they can't tell you that it cures you. They say it's supposed to boost your immune system, even though it actually weakens it. Those are the examples of things that would be a violation of our policy. So I guess I can pretty much expect that this video is going to be deleted. Facebook's and Mark Zuckerberg says his company is combating harmful misinformation by taking down posts and promoting defiance. Yeah, taking down posts that promote defiance of social distancing rules. So this is exactly what I was talking about. That's these platforms, YouTube, Facebook, whatnot. They're not meant for civil discourse and organizing and fighting the establishment. They are the establishment, and they're monitoring it. I laughed when I saw this article. We're talking about contact tracing and how Apple and Google are the ones that have already, I believe they've already created it. It's just a matter of unrolling it. But they said they're going to terminate the COVID-19 tracking tools once the pandemic ends. They're temporary measures. And if you haven't heard of this about contact tracing, it's basically a way for them to track the spread of the virus. They've turned to technology and surveillance tools, and the practice has raised concerns among privacy advocates. And they worry that the measures taken during the emergency, in the name or the guise of security, national security, and safety, it will outlast the pandemic. Well, yeah. I just kind of assumed that they would stay forever. So Walmart was one of the first big companies to start limiting the number of customers that they have, counting them inside the store and stuff. And now we're seeing articles like this, why 6 feet as far as social distancing may not be enough. So maybe now they'll only allow one person in the store at a time. You have Ford Motor Company testing buzzing wristbands to help keep workers 6 feet apart. They vibrate when someone on the assembly line comes within 6 feet of one another. U.S. experts say mass surveillance, vaccines, and social distancing are key to ending the lockdowns. In Australia, you have coronavirus social distancing to stay until vaccine is found. That's the mantra right now. And that could be anywhere from 6 months to a year. And if you took your flu vaccine, you have an increased risk of coronavirus. So make sure you take your coronavirus vaccine when it's available. So while a face mask may make you sick and ventilators may kill patients, you have a driver crashing into a pole from excessive wearing a face mask. Thank you.